I gotta see that over and over again.
If you had to make a roster of the players that would be the stars of the NBA's future, who would make the cut? I think this is an interesting question because the NBA is absolutely loaded with young talent, so it's definitely a challenge to sift through the insane amount of high upside players in the league and trim it down to a 12-man roster. In this video, that is exactly what I will be trying to accomplish with the young stars of the Western Conference. To qualify for the team, I decided that only players 24 and under would be eligible. So 25-year-olds like De'Aaron Fox and SGA just missed the team. There will be a starting lineup, a 5-player bench, and 2 wild cards that can be any position and will have just barely made the cut. First, let's go through the players that are locks to make the squad. Somehow, Luka Doncic has made 4 All-NBA first teams and he's only 24 years old. Other players that have 4 first teams in their first 5 NBA seasons? Larry Bird, Tim Duncan, and the Iceman George Gervin. So yeah, Luka's a lock. After Luka, we also have to include the insanely explosive Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant, as well as dominant but injury-prone Zion Williamson. Ja and Zion both have some off-the-court questions, but have such huge amounts of talent and potential that it's hard to count them out this early in their careers. I put Ant over Ja in the starting lineup because I feel like both are in the same tier of explosiveness and athleticism, but Ant just seems like more of an overall threat in the future. Ant has a strong build, is more reliable from 3, and although he isn't the level of passer that Ja is, at least he isn't at that level yet, I think that his defensive potential is higher than that of Ja's just because of his physical frame and his strength that we previously mentioned. At center, I think it's appropriate to put the incoming rookie that is supposedly
the singular greatest prospect in NBA draft history.
Victor Wembanyama is most definitely an insane prototype for an NBA player, but even if he doesn't live up to the hype of being one of the GOATs of the NBA, I truly believe he will still easily be one of the GOATs of the defensive end. Not only does he have a crazy 7'4" frame and a monstrous 8-foot wingspan, but he also has great defensive instincts that I personally think will be very apparent once he starts playing in the NBA. The last starting spot goes to the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. Yes, Basketball Reference does list Triple J as primarily a center, but because of the fact that he has previously been categorized as a power forward and he plays with Steven Adams, who is most definitely a center, I think it's not a crime to give him the last starting forward spot. Jaren has led the league in blocks for the past 2 seasons, got his first All-Star nod this season, and is the anchor to a Memphis defense that was ranked number 2 in the league last year. Now that we've established the starting lineup and 6-man, we're officially onto the hardest roster cuts. To come up with this roster, I went through every Western Conference team and looked at every team's players that were the age 24 or younger. I got my list down to 45 candidates for the roster based on counting stats and potential, as well as young players I believe could become stars if given the right opportunity. After a lot of difficult decisions, I came up with the final 6 roster spots. At guard, I have the number 2 overall pick from the draft, Scoot Henderson. Scoot is an athletic beast that is also a Mamba mentality type competitor. If he can live up to his draft comps of being prime D Rose or Russell Westbrook, then he is definitely deserving of making the cut. Jalen Williams or J-Dub from OKC gets the first forward spot. Jalen was almost able to catch up to Paulo in the Rookie of the Year race, despite not becoming a regular starter for the Thunder until around game 25 of the season. J-Dub can get to the rim, has solid defense, a reliable 3-point shot, and good playmaking skills for a rookie forward. The last forward spot goes to Trey Murphy III from the Pelicans. This one might come as a surprise, and that's one of the reasons he made the list. If given the opportunity, I very much believe Trey could be a very valuable 2-way star. Because the Pelicans are such a deep roster, Trey has been covered up by forwards Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. In his rookie year, Trey only saw the court for 13 minutes a night, but thanks to some opportunity due to the injuries of Ingram and Zion last season, Trey was able to start 80% of the Pelicans games this past season. Trey had an insane efficiency with basically 50-40-90 splits and a solid 14.5 points per game. Trey had one of the lowest usage ratings in the league and took the vast majority of his shots from 3-point range. 96% of Trey's threes were assisted. He was 91st percentile for his efficiency at the rim, but only took 27% of his shots at the rim, which is far too low for a player of his height and athletic ability. All of these things point to the fact that the Pelicans are boxing in Trey as a catch-and-shoot player when he is capable of much more. I do see a path for Trey to become one of the premier 3-and-D wings in the league, but I also see the potential for him to be a star at all levels of scoring. and currently I think he isn't in the right situation for such growth. Trae is also a much more reliable player than the Pelicans' two current forward starters. Trae played 79 games last season compared to the combined 74 games for Ingram and Zion. I do believe that Zion is an all-world talent, but if the Pelicans do decide to trade him away because of his injury problems, Trey Murphy is already an overly qualified successor. The backup center position goes to Chet Holmgren. Chet hasn't played an NBA game yet despite getting drafted back in 2022, but he definitely still has the upside to be an elite center. He has great physical attributes and instincts for a rim protector, as well as a pretty solid handle for a big man. I think Chet will fit right in with the young OKC core. Now for the first wildcard spot, I chose Alperen Şengün. If everything goes as planned, I see Şengün as the next Jokic basically, but due to a poorly run front office in Houston, I don't know if it will work out exactly like that, especially if they're making moves to sign Dylan Brooks for $20 million a year and they're giving a veteran guard close to $45 million when they have all the young pieces for a future dynasty. Nonetheless, I think Şengün definitely has a place in the league. Şengün is the youngest center in NBA history to have a triple-double, as well as the youngest Rockets player in their franchise history to have a triple-double. All this points to Alperen having a very bright future. The last wildcard spot for the Western Conference All-Future team goes to Josh Giddey. Now the third Thunder player on this roster, I think it's very reasonable to say that the Thunder could be a very dominant force in the future. Giddey has great vision and his 6'8" frame at the guard position is a huge advantage. The one flaw in Giddey's game that critics like to poke at is his three-point shooting ability. Although he only shot a below average 32% from 3 last year, he shot 26% in his rookie year, which shows that he has the ability to improve in that area of his game. His corner 3 shooting is a very respectable 40%, which leads me to believe that he can still be a complete offensive player if used in the correct system. So that's the finished roster. Because there are so many good young players in the Western Conference, I also have 6 snubs, or players who just missed the cut but still could be very good in the future. My 6 snubs are Jalen Green, Anthony Simons, Jabari Smith Jr., and then rookies Keontae George, Amen Thompson, and Taylor Hendricks. If you have any ideas or suggestions for who should or shouldn't have made the cut, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching and please subscribe if you enjoyed the video.